Snark Squad, babes, it is Thursday evening, and honestly, we are hydrated, gorgeous, and feeling ourselves, period.
Maybe it's the wine. Maybe it's more wine. Who knows? Who cares? Babes, we feel amazing.
Let's be clear. The Moscato is back on deck, and babes, it is so good. Shout out to Barefoot.
We are literally holding up our glasses to the microphone right now, like, cheers to us.
Even though you have not slid into our DMs to sponsor this show, we are waiting.
I mean, we are practically sending up smoke signals at this point.
Yeah.
You know how many bottles of this sugary, chaotic nectar we consume while unpacking the television landscape? It is an investment. It is a full-blown lifestyle.
It's a personality trait, honestly. And, we need the hydration tonight because we did something different this evening after work. Because, yes, we are dentists. Responsible. Professional. But also chaotic. We went to a Turkish tea reader. And, babes, we need to talk about it.
We truly do, because I have been biting my tongue for the last 3.5 hours, and the dam of logic is about to just completely break.
Okay, wait, babes. You have to picture the entire scene. Set the mood with me. We leave the clinic. We rip off the scrubs because it was a day of terrible scheduling, back-to-back root canals, and Brenda at the front desk was just testing my last nerve. So we are entering our mystical, spiritual era to cleanse the palate.
Right.
We walk down this cobblestone alleyway into this tiny, tiny room tucked away behind what I swear was a heavy burgundy velvet curtain in the back of a bakery.
It was a fire hazard is what it was. I was looking for the exit signs the whole time.
It was atmospheric. Come on, the incense, heavy. I'm talking sensory overload. It smelled like sandalwood, cardamom, and ancient secrets. There are pillows everywhere, these gorgeous mustard yellow beaded pillows, just cozy chaos, dimly lit brass lamps, and this woman, she just exudes this deeply rooted, knowing energy. She pours the tea, we drink the tea, she flips the cup onto the saucer, and the way she looked at the little clump of leaves, I was hyperventilating. I was literally shaking in my boots. She looked directly into my soul, past my physical body, and said something so devastatingly accurate. She said I was cutting out toxic energy.
Okay, let's apply some actual analytical rigor to this situation, because from where I was sitting on my incredibly lumpy, non-ergonomic floor pillow, it was less ancient knowing energy and more like a highly observant woman who saw two exhausted millennials clutching their smartphones like life rafts.
You are so cynical.
No, hear me out. You walked in sighing heavily, loudly complaining about Brenda's inability to manage a calendar and radiating baseline corporate stress. When she said cutting out toxic energy, that is the absolute textbook definition of a Barnum statement.
A what?
A Barnum statement. It is a psychological trick. It applies to literally everyone with a pulse in the year 2026. It's cold reading, babes.
Stop. Do not do this. You are ruining my spiritual awakening with your clinical logic. How did she know then? How did she know about the specific internal stress I was carrying? Because I felt a shift in the room, a literal, palpable, energetic shift. I am fully 100% believing this.
Okay, well.
My intuition is screaming that she saw my aura and recognized a woman on the edge of a breakthrough.
Your aura was a literal venti iced coffee and a scowl because it was raining, and your umbrella inverted on the walkover. I was tracking her eye movements the entire time. She was reading your body language, not the Earl Grey residue.
With the leaves.
You were leaning in, your pupils were dilated, your breathing was shallow. You were giving her every micro-expression she needed to validate her extremely vague guess about your life.
But she looked at the little clump of leaves and said, "A dark cloud is lifting, but you must establish boundaries." Babes? Boundaries. That is exactly what I have been saying I need to do with my mother-in-law. That is not a coincidence.
I mean, it is the dictionary definition of a coincidence, wrapped in a blanket of confirmation bias and fueled by wine-induced delusion. She cast a wide net, and you jumped right into the bite.
I hate when you get logical.
But you know what? If it gives you peace, if it makes you feel empowered to finally tell your mother-in-law to stop texting you at 10 p.m., I support the delusion.
Speaking of delusion.
Oh my God, yes. Fitness check. Because, babes, we also made it to Pilates this morning, before work.
I am still physically recovering from the trauma, honestly.
Are we fitness queens now?
If by fitness queens you mean two people who paid $52 to lay on a medieval torture device masquerading as a reformer machine and regret every life choice that led us to a 6 a.m. alarm, then yes, we are absolute royalty.
Okay, but my core was on fire. My legs were shaking in ways I did not know human limbs were biologically capable of shaking. The instructor was this terrifyingly perky woman named Ashley, who was basically a Victoria's Secret angel in matching grip socks.
She didn't even sweat. It was unnatural. Right. And she looked me dead in the eye and told me to pulse while I was fighting for my actual life. But when we walked out, tell me, we didn't feel transformed. I felt like my posture was instantly fixed.
The delusion of complete anatomical transformation after exactly 52 minutes of light resistance training is truly something that needs to be studied by sports scientists.
I felt taller.
You walked out into the lobby, caught your reflection in a mirrored pillar, and immediately said, "I think my upper abs are coming in." Babes, it was the fluorescent recessed lighting casting a shadow.
Let me live.
Muscle hypertrophy takes weeks of sustained micro tears and protein synthesis, not one session of the teaser pose. The struggle of consistency is real. We will see if we go back next week, or if this becomes another expensive personality trait we completely abandon by Tuesday.
I am manifesting consistency. I am cutting out the toxic energy of laziness. Which brings me to the rose and thorn of the day. And honestly, my rose is so profound today. It's about the sheer beauty of small, fleeting moments in the human experience.
Brace yourselves, Snark Squad. Adjust your volume. Here comes the Oscar-worthy monologue.
I went to get my afternoon matcha, right? And I was just feeling so overwhelmed with the world, the intense energy of the tea reading, the physical breakdown from the Pilates, the sheer weight of modern existence.
So dramatic.
And the barista, who usually doesn't even look up from the steaming wand, handed me my cup and our hands brushed, and they looked at me, held eye contact for just a second longer than normal, and said, "Have a beautiful day."
Wait, really?
Yes. The sincerity in their eyes, it just broke me open. It was this moment of profound human connection in an otherwise disconnected digital void. I almost cried in the middle of the cafe. That is my rose. Humanity, true connection, love in the small things.
Wow. That was a staggering amount of emotion projected onto an underpaid barista who is literally forced to read a standard corporate customer service script while handing you a $16 green beverage.
You are so cynical.
I am grounded in reality. My rose, on the other hand, is completely tangible. My rose is that the clinic's espresso machine is finally fixed, saving us from the absolute toxic energy of drinking drip decaf for another week.
You are so dead inside. What is your thorn, then?
My thorn is having to listen to you romanticize a barista transaction while I just desperately wanted my caffeine. And my other thorn is that I know deep down in my analytical soul we're going to abandon this Pilates era the very second the weather forecast calls for rain.
You are the dark cloud the tea reader warned me about. Pour another glass of Moscato right now. Because speaking of trusting your intuition over cold, hard logic, we need to pivot. We need to transition from our real-life chaos to the absolute chaos happening on our screens. Because, babes, the television landscape is delivering a masterclass in fragile egos, and we need to unpack it.
Let the record show my glass is already topped up. We are heading into the absolute mess that is the third season of our favorite quirky procedural. Because April 16, 2026 gave us the masterpiece of petty crime known as murder, he wrote.
Snark Squad, if you are not watching the show, I need to know what you are doing with your lives. We are hyper-invested. We are practically on the NYPD precinct payroll at this point. So let's set the scene and look at the big picture. We are introduced to our villain. And babes, when I say villain, I mean a toxic, gaslighting, fragile nightmare of a man. Enter guest star Griffin Dunne playing Elliott Pope.
And let's be entirely objective here for a second. Griffin Dunne, a master class in casting, a network knew exactly what they were doing. He is playing this obnoxious, fiercely misogynistic novelist who thinks he is literally God's gift to the New York literary scene.
Ugh, the worst kind of guy.
Exactly. He is the exact definition of a male author who writes female characters by describing their physical anatomy before bothering to give them a personality or a single thought.
Yes. He is giving massive, unhinged, Bravo reality TV villain energy. Snark Squad, you know the exact type. He is that one extremely toxic guy who screams at women all season, cheats, lies, throws drinks at dinner parties, and then goes to the reunion wearing a velvet blazer, fake cries without producing a single actual tear, and somehow manages to play the victim because he had a really tough year of personal growth.
Spot on.
Elliott Pope is that guy, but with a 6-figure publishing deal.
The psychology of this character is fascinating, though. Let's really break down the fragile male author trope here. The show gives us a man who has literal sexual assault allegations from young grad students, which he casually and horrifyingly brushes off as misunderstandings. He is a predator hiding behind the shield of being an intellectual.
It's disgusting, the absolute entitlement.
Right, and look at the mechanism of how he writes his books. He writes these massive disaster novels where his male narrators cause horrific catastrophes like a literal avalanche and feel absolutely zero guilt about it.
Oh, wait, I never even thought about the avalanche thing.
Yeah, why an avalanche? Because an avalanche is an act of God. It's an unstoppable force of nature. He writes his male protagonists as forces of nature who cause devastation but bear no moral responsibility for the fallout. It is a complete, transparent psychological projection of his own lack of accountability in the real world.
Oh my God, you are blowing my mind right now. I didn't even put the avalanche metaphor together. But wait, here's where it gets even messier. The timing. The network aired this specific episode featuring this fragile male ego, borderline predator of a character during Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Exactly. It's a brilliant, dryly ironic choice by the showrunners. They drop this narcissist with a god complex right into our laps and say, look at this monster. Look at how society protects him just because he can string a sentence together.
It is so messy, and I live for every second of the takedown. Which transitions perfectly into analyzing his victim, his supposed longtime friend, Barney Corman, played by the incredible Mark Lynn-Baker. Barney is this bookstore owner, a respected literary critic, and frankly, an absolute king. We have to talk about the backroom dragging.
The setup for the friction is flawless. They start with this authors in conversation event. Barney is interviewing Elliott on stage, and you can already feel the passive aggression and history dripping off the podium. But the real mess, the catalyst for everything, happens in the back room of Barney's bookstore. 2 months prior to the murder, Elliott handed Barney his handwritten manuscript.
Stop right there. Can we just pause on the sheer, unhinged behavior of handing someone your only handwritten copy of a novel in the year 2026?
Pure, undiluted narcissism.
Yeah.
He doesn't type it out. He doesn't back it up to the cloud. He assumes his raw, handwritten scrawl is so undeniably brilliant that it belongs in the Smithsonian immediately.
It is delusional. But babes, 2 months later, Elliott corners Barney in the back room of the dusty bookstore, demanding praise. And Barney reads him to absolute filth. I am talking he left no crumbs.
It was brutal.
Barney looks him in the eye and calls the book a sad, masturbatory exercise steeped in misogyny and casual cruelty. I was screaming at my television screen. Snark Squad, I physically paused the show, poured more Moscato, and rewound it just to hear the delivery again.
It was a clinical, surgically precise dismantling of a man's entire fragile ego. Barney knew exactly where to slide the knife. And he didn't stop at the literary critique. He went after the man's mother.
Yes.
He roasted Elliott for using their hometown of Massapequa as cheap fodder, sparing absolutely no one in the town except his sainted mother and her precious, lovingly made tuna sandwiches.
The tuna sandwich roast. Babes, you do not go after a narcissistic man's mother's tuna sandwiches unless you are fully dressed in armor and ready for war. That is the sacred cow. And Elliott, you see the exact moment his brain short circuits.
Yeah, the mask lips.
He cannot take the criticism. He fakes being okay. He does that creepy, terrifying, dead-eyed little smile. He turns around, and then the murder. The most petty, dramatic murder in the history of television procedurals.
This is where I have to pause and apply some serious analytical rigor, because the actual mechanics of this murder are deeply absurd. Let's look at the physics of what Elliott does. He pushes a bookcase over.
A massive ceiling height domino effect of solid wood bookcases.
Right. It's a domino effect. But logistically speaking, relying on a line of heavy, freestanding wooden bookcases to fall in a perfect, uninterrupted sequence at the exact right angle to crush a grown lion to death is a terrible, terrible murder strategy.
Wait, why?
Because what if Barney just stepped to the left? What if the books absorbed the impact? What if it just severely bruised his shin and he yelled for help? It is not a guaranteed weapon.
Wait, I hear your logic, but look at the symbolism. Why a bookcase? It's not just a heavy object. It's literal literature crushing the critic. He is using the physical manifestation of Barney's life's workbooks to silence him. He is letting his ego physically crush the man who bruised it.
Okay, I will grant you the poetic irony.
Yeah.
But purely from a criminal mastermind perspective, he leaves way too much to chance.
But he didn't leave it to chance at the end. That is the detail that gave me chills. The last bookcase falls, but it gets caught on a little wooden footstool. So the massive shelf is hovering inches over Barney's chest. He's trapped beneath it, gasping, but he's alive.
That part was actually tense.
And Elliott, this cold, dead-eyed sociopath, slowly walks over, looks down at his friend fighting for air, and literally kicks the footstool out. He pulls the support away so the entire weight of the bookcase violently crushes Barney's chest.
That is the moment it transitions from a crime of passion, like a sudden push out of rage, to cold-blooded, premeditated murder. The pulling of the stool requires active intent to end the life.
Exactly. And then the sheer camp of what he does next. He casually bends down, steals his precious handwritten manuscript back from the dead man's hands, walks to the front door of the bookstore, and flips the sign toward closed. flipping the sign, the audacity.
It's highly cinematic. He views himself as the protagonist of his own dark thriller, so of course he performs a dramatic exit. And because he is dealing with the standard NYPD before our quirky, brilliant queen gets involved, he actually gets away with it.
Which perfectly explains the 18-month time jump. We flash forward a year and a half. And Elliott, he is thriving. He is completely unbothered, glowing, promoting a new book at another Authors in Conversation event. This time it's hosted by Fred Harrison. And guess who happens to be sitting in the audience absorbing the energy?
Our girl, Elsbeth, with her bestie Cheryl right beside her.
Yes.
Let's talk about why the writers jumped 18 months, though. Arrogance needs time to marinate. Elliott thinks he has committed the absolute perfect crime. He has spent a year and a half receiving adulation, completely secure in his genius. He let his guard down. And Elsbeth is sitting there in the crowd, taking her meticulous notes.
I love when she has the little notebook out.
During the Q&A, she goes straight for the jugular. She starts questioning the internal logic of his new book. A character named Marty, who is very obviously a thinly veiled, cruel caricature of the dead, Barney dies in an avalanche. But Elsbeth points out a flaw. Marty wasn't athletic. So why on earth would he be on a dangerous ski trip?
And babes, the fans online were losing their absolute minds over this scene. Snark Squad, if you were deep in the Reddit threads on Thursday night, you know it was a total chaotic spiral.
The Snark Squad online was ruthless this week. The live reaction thread was on fire because people were actively calling out the show's writing.
They were so mad.
The fans were incredibly annoyed. They felt Elsbeth's leap in logic was totally unearned. Elliott gets a little flustered, mentions Agatha Christie, and tells Elsbeth, "You can't read my fictional book like an Agatha Christie murder mystery." And that is the exact moment Elsbeth gets officially, undeniably suspicious that he is a murderer. And the Reddit users were like, "Are you kidding me?" A mystery writer mentions Agatha Christie in a bookstore, and suddenly she knows he's a killer. That is way too much of a leap.
No, I completely reject the Reddit consensus. I have to push back on this with every fiber of my being. I completely defend Elsbeth's intuition here. Have these people on Reddit never watched a reality TV reunion? Have they never studied human behavior?
Go on.
When someone gets overly defensive, overly explanatory about a seemingly innocent logistical question, your radar goes off.
Explain the mechanism, though.
Yeah.
Why does the Agatha Christie line trigger her?
Because he broke the fourth wall of his own lie. Elsbeth is basically acting like a Bravo superfan spotting a bad, highly edited confessional. She asked a simple question about a character skiing. Instead of just saying, "Oh, it's just a plot device," he over-explained. He got defensive. He specifically told her not to look too closely at the mystery. Babes, that is guilt radiating out of his pores. She felt the defensive energy shift in the room. Just like Madame Zaina, the tea reader, felt my need for boundaries.
Please, let's not validate the tea reader again by comparing her to an actual legal genius.
It's the same energy.
But fine, I will concede your point on the psychological profiling. Elsbeth's superpower isn't finding physical clues right away. It's reading behavioral anomalies. Elliott told on himself by trying to aggressively control her perception of his work. But back at the precinct, we run into the classic procedural roadblock. Captain Wagner.
Oh my God, Wagner. We need to give some context for anyone who isn't fully caught up. Wagner is the precinct captain. He is perpetually stressed out. He is currently fighting political battles just to keep his own job. And he is constantly doubting Elsbeth. I rolled my eyes so hard at him they almost got stuck looking at my ceiling fan.
He is a skeptic by trade.
He literally sits there and says he doesn't believe it's murder. I was screaming at the television, "Wagner, it's been 3 years. She has a 100% solve rate. She is always right. Stop doubting our quirky queen. Like, why are we still doing this exhausted dance?"
It's the necessary narrative friction. You can't have the boss immediately agree or the episode is over in 10 minutes. But I agree. Analytically, it's getting exhausting to watch. If a woman with a flawless track record over 3 years walks into your office and says, "That famous author killed his best friend with a bookcase," you don't roll your eyes. You hand her a badge, a warrant, and a coffee.
Exactly. Thank God for Connor. Because this investigation leads us to the greatest B-plot location ever filmed, the bookstore storeroom. Elsbeth and Hackett go to visit Barney's grieving widow, Bev, and babes, we have to bow down. Bev is played by Didi Khan, Frenchie from Greece, an absolute cinematic icon.
A phenomenal cameo.
Yeah.
And the storeroom they walk into is an absolute chaotic disaster zone. Bev is overwhelmed, trying to clean out Barney's life, and she is actively dealing with a massive rat named Templeton.
A rat named Templeton, which, by the way, is a total metaphor. Templeton the rat scurrying around the dark corners of the bookstore is literally just Elliott Pope scurrying around the New York literary scene.
That is actually a great read on that.
Right. They literally have to call in backup Brad and Jill to trap this rat just so Elsbeth can get on her hands and knees and look at the floorboards.
The indignity of having to trap a rodent to solve a homicide. But it's worth the chaos, because Elsbeth finds the physical linchpin of the case. She finds the deep scratch on the wooden footstool and perfectly matches it to the molding on the bottom of the fallen bookcase. She proves the school was pulled horizontally under immense weight. We have our proof of murder.
Finally.
But honestly, the forensic evidence is nothing compared to the absolute masterpiece of the fax machine mess.
Yes. This is where the plot completely elevates from a standard by-the-numbers mystery into a glorious Shakespearean masterpiece of petty drama. Bev is digging through boxes and finds Barney's old fax logs.
And we discover the victim's secret life.
I am obsessed with this. Barney, the dead victim, had been secretly faxing Elliott's first wife, Maura, played by the legendary, fabulous Joanna Gleason, for years.
Icons only in this cast.
Right. He was writing these hilarious, scathing, brutal, deeply personal reviews of Elliott's unpublished work and just sending them over the literal fax machine for laughs. The pettiness of ex-wife fax machine gossip. It is giving leaked group chat screenshots, but done with 1990s dial-up technology.
It's brilliant narrative design.
Yeah.
Moore's just sitting in her fabulous, wealthy life, casually receiving long-form faxes about a terrible manuscript, tragically, hilariously titled Troubled Pants.
Troubled pants. I cannot breathe.
But look at what this reveals psychologically. It proves that Elliott's massive, fragile ego was constantly, systematically being rocked behind his back by the exact two people he thought respected him the most. His best friend and his ex-wife. It gives Elsbeth the exact psychological ammunition she needs for the warfare that follows.
Which weaves perfectly into what we need to discuss. Who had you most impressed and confused? Because the psychological warfare begins at Gogol's restaurant. The dinner date scene. Elliott invites Elsbeth to dinner, thinking he can charm her off his scent.
Big mistake.
He orders borscht for her without asking. Massive neon red flag, incredibly toxic, deeply controlling. He keeps pouring her schnapps to lower her inhibitions. And then he gets so creepy. He leans in and suggests they go back to his place to celebrate. The way Elsbeth just looks at him and drops that disgusted, flat, completely unbothered. No, it was everything.
It was a defining character moment for her. She completely refuses to play this simpering, starstruck fan he is used to manipulating. She drops the crime scene photos of the bookstore on the table, casually brings up the title Troubled Pants, and you physically see his mask slip. The charm evaporates.
Spiraling.
He rushes home and literally burns the only copy of Troubled Pants in a trash can in his own apartment. Which, again, unhinged, dangerous behavior. But the real turning point, the absolute strategic masterpiece, is the tuna sandwich.
I have actual chills just thinking about the brilliance of this. This is the chaotic genius moment for segment 1. Elsbeth, using a literal physical tuna sandwich to mentally break a narcissistic sociopath, is weaponizing a grown man's mommy issues, the most chaotic, reality TV level strategic move we've ever witnessed.
It's weaponized psychology operating at the highest possible level. Let's break down mechanics.
Yeah.
Elsbeth shows up at his house the next day with a peace offering. A brown paper bag containing a tuna sandwich. But not just any tuna sandwich.
Oh, no.
She calmly sits in his living room and tells him that his sainted mother, the only woman he ever respected, the woman he held above all others, never actually made those perfect sandwiches he talks about. She bought them, pre-made, from the local deli down the street from his childhood home in Massapequa.
I spiral every single time I think about the sheer amount of research this required. How did she figure out where a dead woman bought her deli sandwiches 3 decades ago, just to prove a psychological point? Did she cross-reference 1980s deli receipts? Did she interview the ghosts of Massapequa? Did she bribe a retired deli owner? It is next-level obsessive stalking for the sake of justice.
Well, think of Elliott's ego not as a solid brick wall, but as a towering, incredibly precarious Jenga tower. He built this entire defensive structure on one foundational block, the belief that his mother was a pure, devoted saint who lovingly made him tuna sandwiches while every other woman in the world is manipulative and trying to trap him.
Yeah.
Elsbeth didn't have to argue with him about his book. She didn't have to debate his alibi. She just worked up, found that one foundational tuna sandwich block and pulled it straight out, and the entire Jenga tower of his reality collapsed.
And he snapped. He literally lost his mind. Snark Squad, this scene was genuinely, viscerally terrifying. He aggressively backs Elsbeth against the wall, towering over her, screaming in her face, spitting venom about how women are always trying to trap him, always lying to him.
Yeah, it was intense.
Elsbeth is rarely in actual physical danger on this show. She usually just outsmarts the killers with a quirky smile and a Columbo-style question. But Griffin Dunne completely nailed that terrifying pivot.
Oh.
1 second, he's a charming intellectual. The next, he's a massive, looming predator.
It perfectly highlighted the extreme danger of backing a narcissist into a corner. When a narcissist's core self-image is threatened, they don't reflect. They respond with explosive, disproportionate rage. It's called a narcissistic injury. It was a very grounded, remarkably dark moment for a show that usually keeps the tone relatively breezy, but it perfectly sets up his ultimate downfall.
The glorious arrest. Elsbeth, Connor, and Hackett confidently confront him at another one of his smug writing seminars. And the physical evidence that finally brings him down? Babes, it is so gross. Spit. Literal DNA-laced spit.
And once again, it brings us right back to the sheer arrogance of the criminal. They found his DNA perfectly preserved on a specific page of Barney's rare first-edition copy of Howard's End. Why? Because Elliott Pope, literary genius, has this gross, archaic, deeply unsanitary habit of aggressively licking his thumb to turn pages.
Nasty. Disgusting. In a post-pandemic world, no less.
He did it earlier in the episode when he was aggressively signing Elsbeth's book, and she clocked the behavioral quirk. He turned the pages of the first edition while Barney was literally dying on the floor next to him, casually leaving his saliva at the scene of the crime. He has walked out of his own seminar in cuffs, his entire legacy destroyed by his own gross, unconscious habit.
The poetic justice is overwhelming. But, babes, the chaos of this week does not end with the murder. We have to dive into the massive B-plot chaos, the romantic and political breakup mess.
Oh, this was rough.
Let's provide some quick context. Alec Bloom, Elsbeth's charming, very handsome politician boyfriend, finally wins the mayoral race. But in a completely heartrending scene, Elsbeth breaks up with him. And she does it while wearing the most iconic, vibrant, massive rainbow parka I have ever seen in my life.
It was a devastatingly sad scene, but it was psychologically necessary. She realized she was slipping into chronic people-pleasing. She was losing her edge because Alec looked her in the eye and lied to her about his involvement with Pete.
He messed with her intuition. The tea reader, Madame Zena, would be so incredibly proud of Elsbeth right now. She recognized the toxic energy, she saw the political lie for what it was, and she cut the cord.
Here we go with the tea reader again.
She literally told him that being lied to was messing with her gift. And you do not mess with the quirky queen's investigative gift. That is why she wore the rainbow parka. She needed the physical, emotional armor of bright colors to protect her energy while she dumped him.
Which forces us to ask the real question here for segment 4. If you were in Elsbeth's rainbow parka, are you trusting this man? In real life, if you're dating a charming man who just won the mayoral race, are you trusting Alec Bloom?
Absolutely not. Blocked, deleted, restraining order. Once a liar, always a liar. If you mess with my intuition, if you gaslight me and make me doubt my own reality for even a second just to protect your precious political campaign, you are toxic energy.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. You're projecting the Turkish tea reader's vague platitudes onto complex municipal politics. Alec Bloom is a politician. As a baseline rule, compartmentalizing the truth and spinning narratives is quite literally a prerequisite for the job.
But he lied to her.
Was he being actively malicious to Elsbeth, or was he playing the brutal political game to protect her and Wagner from a massive precinct scandal?
I do not care about his political strategy. I'm applying universal spiritual truths to a corrupt political system. Alec Bloom is charming, yes. He looks fantastic in a tailored suit, yes. But he looked our quirky queen dead in the eye and fed her a lie. And you saw the toll it took on her. She was second-guessing her own brilliant mind. I will never, ever trust him.
From a purely analytical standpoint, I wouldn't trust him with my deep emotional secrets, but I would probably trust him to ruthlessly run a city. He knows how to maneuver. But as a romantic partner for someone like Elsbeth, it's a fundamentally terrible match. She requires absolute, unfiltered transparency to function, and he exists in a world built on spin. So no, I wouldn't trust him to hold her heart.
Exactly. Protect Elsbeth at all costs. But speaking of political maneuvering, we have to talk about Wagner's loss. Because of all this surrounding drama, Wagner loses the coveted commissioner job to his absolute rival, Tully.
Which perfectly sets up a strategic debate for segment 2. If we zoom out and look at who's actually playing the best game in this entire mess strategy versus personality, We have two prime candidates. Candidate 1 is Maura, the ex-wife, getting free entertainment via fax for years, completely unbothered. Candidate 2 is Tully, swooping in from the sidelines to steal the commissioner job while Wagner is distracted. Who is playing the better game?
Oh, it has to be Maura.
Hold on, let's evaluate this analytically.
Hmm.
Tully is playing a classic opportunistic strategy. He saw a vacuum of focus. Wagner was distracted by the Alec Bloom mayoral race, the Pete drama, and managing Elsbeth's eccentricities. Tully played the traditional political game, shaking the right hands, making the right promises, and he secured the bag. It's highly effective, but it's standard.
Boring. Next.
But wait, let's look at Maura. You were saying she's living her best life. But let's look at the actual mechanics of her behavior. She is spending years, literally years, of her finite life setting up a covert, dedicated fax communication system just to obsessively mock her ex-husband's unpublished manuscript. Is that actually thriving? Or is it just a different, highly sophisticated flavor of toxic obsession? Has she really moved on?
Yes. She is completely thriving because she is not letting him control the narrative. She escaped a toxic marriage with a narcissistic abuser, and instead of letting him ruin her peace, she took her power back through petty, glorious comedy. She is the Ariana Madix of the literary world.
That's a huge comparison.
She didn't blow up his spot. She didn't go crying to the press. She just sat in her beautiful, wealthy home, drinking expensive wine, reading The Disaster That Is Troubled Pants, and laughing with his best friend. That is not just a strategy, babes. That is an aspirational lifestyle. Maura is the winner, hands down.
I will concede that she successfully neutralized his emotional power over her by turning him into a private punchline. But none of that political or petty maneuvering compares to the sheer, unadulterated madness of our villain for segment 3. We need to call out the most unhinged behavior of the entire hour.
I am still deeply, profoundly disturbed by the audacity of Elliott Pope. You get a bad review on a handwritten manuscript from your best friend, so your immediate logical response is to casually murder him with a heavy piece of furniture.
Insane.
Then you steal the paperback, you go home, live your fabulous life for 18 months, flirt with younger women, and then burn the manuscript of Troubled Pants in a trash can in your apartment. Who does that?
If we clinically analyze Elliott, his entire arc of behavior is driven by profound narcissistic injury. He doesn't see Barney as an autonomous human being. He sees Barney purely as a mirror reflecting his own self-worth. And when the mirror reflected a massive flaw, that his writing was misogynistic and masturbatory, he didn't fix the flaw. He literally shattered the mirror. He fully believed he was writing the perfect crime. He thought his intellect made him completely untouchable by standard law enforcement.
But he left literal spit on the book. He thought he was a criminal mastermind, a dark genius, but he licked his thumb like a toddler turning the pages of a picture book. The fragile male ego is truly the most dangerous and simultaneously the most embarrassing weapon on earth.
It's the arrogance that ultimately undoes him. He didn't even consider the possibility that he could leave microscopic trace evidence because he fundamentally believes the rules of biology and consequence do not apply to him. It's unhinged, but it's a terrifyingly accurate portrayal of that specific type of protected literary megalomaniac.
Disgusting. Cancel him. Burn his books, not just his manuscripts. Babes, getting into this source material today took us on a literal, exhausting journey. From the dark depths of a rat-infested bookstore storeroom to the emotional heights of a devastating breakup in the snow wearing a rainbow parka.
We have truly covered the entire spectrum of human delusion and psychology tonight.
We really have. From our Thursday evening corporate confidence spiral to the absolute sensory chaos of the Turkish tea reading to the 6 a.m. Pilates delusion where I fully believed I grew a six-pack in under an hour. It has been a wild ride. And honestly, the Moscato magic fueled every single hot take and revelation.
We are running on fumes, sugar, and sheer snark, but the analysis remains incredibly sharp.
Always. Snark Squad, we want to hear from you. We need your energy. Slide into the comments, slide into the DMs. We have pressing questions for the group chat. First, do you believe in tea readings? Tell me I am not crazy. Tell me the energetic shift behind that velvet curtain was real.
Please provide peer-reviewed empirical evidence if you do.
Ignore that completely. Second question, are we actually fitness queens now? Should we commit and buy the matching expensive grip socks?
Do not encourage the spending spiral. We are dentists, not influencers.
And babes, most importantly, when was the last time you felt this good? Because despite the political lies, the falling bookcases, and the toxic, fragile authors roaming the streets, we are thriving.
We truly are.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to keep you up tonight. We know Elliott burned his only copy of the Troubled Pants manuscript. But in 2026, nothing is truly deleted. If Barney was actively faxing detailed pages and reviews to Maura for years, does the ex-wife still have the physical fax copies? Is Maura sitting in her fabulous house on the ultimate embarrassing blackmail material from beyond the grave? Think about that.
Now that is a strategic long game.
Remember to rate, review, subscribe, send your mess and submissions. Send this to your most confident friend, the one who intuitively pulls the footstool out from under the drama.
Thank you to the Snark Squad for always validating our chaos and our extensive tangents.
We love you. Stay shady.
Stay iconic.
And we'll see you on the snark side.